Nothing was overnight, this life took a lot of prep. Gotta crawl before you walk, I tried to skip a lot of steps.
Everyone, thank you for tuning in. My name is Dante Jaquel from In-House and Company. This is our episode number 1 of our podcast. We are here with talented rapper, creative, artist, entrepreneur, my man, Strada.
What's going on,
How you doing, Strada,
I'm
man?
good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming through. We also have another special guest, the other half, the 1/3 of In-House and Company, my man, master and engineer and producer, Andy Rule.
Yeah.
So I want to get into this. I want the people to learn a little bit more about you, where you come from. From what the research I've done, I know you come from originally Philadelphia and then transitioned to New Jersey. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So feel free to start from the beginning and then we'll go from there.
All right. So yeah, I'm originally from South Philly, and I'm Italian, tight knit family. You know.
Okay.
I always had a love for hip hop. I say this all the time, like the culture of hip hop.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I looked up to the guys on the corner.
Mhm.
I looked up to like the flashiness of it. You know what I'm saying? The cars, the girls, the clothes, the jewels, all that stuff, bro. Like hip hop as a whole. And I fell in love with it, bro. This is like around the time where it was like Biggie and Tupac.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So is it, not to cut you off, but is it safe to say you grew up on a lot of 90s?
Like a lot of 90s hip hop for real. Yeah, I'm an 80s baby.
I feel
You know what
that.
I mean?
Dope.
90s hip hop all the way.
I can relate.
Yeah, but so like when I moved to Jersey, like I had, I vividly remember like I was always obsessed with like sneakers and Jordans and shit, right?
Okay.
So like when I moved out to Jersey at that time, I was like almost an oddball
Right.
back then.
Right.
And certain things like I was always that tight. Like I'll rep where I'm from no matter what.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
right.
like I ran with that.
So
like,
you
yeah,
almost,
Philly.
you almost, not to speak for you, but you almost kind of brought your culture with you wherever you went, right?
Yeah.
Even from a young age, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember it was almost like people used to kind of clown me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would hear all kind of things like just by the way I look.
Right. And I think that comes with the territory of being a creative, and especially knowing or just expressing yourself, whether it be through fashion, whether it be through your fade, getting the right lineup, the crispy lineup, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we'll always run into those people that are almost like naysayers in the beginning, whether it be older in age or younger in age.
Yeah.
We get introduced to people that are very against whether it be change or something that goes against the norm, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And kind of speaking on that, how do you feel like, especially from your beginnings, how do you feel like you went against the norm in like pursuing music, or just even like really becoming a sneakerhead, as you mentioned?
You said like how did I go against the norm?
Yeah, how do you feel like you went against the norm and like kind of stayed away from what everybody was doing in the area?
I was just like that type of kid where like I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing.
I feel that. I hear that.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
that kind of gave me more hunger to be like, yo, like I might be misunderstood, but there will be like a group for me, or I will fit in where, you know what I mean, find my lane. But it was a struggle from a young age. Like I remember still trying to hold on to my old friends that I had when I was a kid. You know?
Right.
Like find any reason I can to go back to the city because I didn't feel like I belonged. You know what I mean?
I feel that. I can imagine, especially like, cause almost like 1 foot in and 1 foot out, right? Like you being from Philly now, being in a new environment, and still bringing that Philly energy with you. It's like, yeah, obviously that would make anybody the black sheep. So I can definitely relate on that. And then I guess like to fast forward, how did you, I guess in a sense, overcome that? Like, how did that shape you into who you are and the artist you are today?
How did I overcome it? It was like, I mean, I found a few people that were like me, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to my boy Chuck. Still my man to this day.
Okay.
Fisher Media Group. He does a lot of my videos.
So
I really just needed that one person that believed in me, that saw, like, that understood me, you know? But yeah, I don't know. It was just like having that feeling, like I said, though, that I didn't belong.
Right.
It was like, I don't know, man. It was kind of like
Kind of fuel to the fire
it was
almost.
fuel to the fire, but
Right.
it's a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
You know
I
what I'm
get
saying?
that now.
Because then, like, feeling that, like, feeling of like I'm different,
Right. Right.
added fuel to the fire, but also got me involved in the, like, that street lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because it was like, all right, you know, my parents try to give me a better life, right?
Mhm.
So you take me out of that environment, but I run right back to it
Right.
every
Right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm gonna run, and I'm gonna make sure it was almost like I resented my parents for that shit, trying to give me a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I chased that street shit even harder. So I'm like, all right, you know, I'll find out, okay, these people smoke weed, these people party, these
Mhm.
people do this and
Right.
that, right?
Mhm.
So, okay, let me go try to find my own ways to make money off this.
Right, right. And it's almost like you seen the duality of life almost, like knowing the life that your parents were probably trying to create for you, and then just seeing the street life, whether if you were glamorizing it or not, it was still almost enticing because it was like night and day from what you had.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people's stories. I think that's why people gravitate to the streets in a sense. And I could be wrong at the end of the day, but I feel like the streets almost create like a sense of family when you feel like I have this family over here, but then there's my street family that know another version of me.
Right.
And another version of me that my family might not know.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, I guess my question is, do you feel like today, are you that version of yourself from like the streets, or do you feel like it's a combination of all the places you've been?
It's definitely a combination. You know, like I feel like they say, like you could take that out of somebody,
Right.
or you could take them out of that, but it's always inside of them. You know, but it made me who I am. Like everything that I've seen, everything I've been through, it shaped me to who I am today. Like I'm not that same person. You know what I'm saying?
Love that. Yeah.
I don't want to stand on that corner. You know what I'm saying? First of all, like I know what comes from that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then coming from like a good family, bro, it's like I'm living a double life.
Right. And that's what I meant. Yeah.
Which caused even more chaos.
I get that.
You know, it was like, but as far as like getting into that lifestyle, like, bro, that like, oh man, it kind of was like, it made me feel not necessarily like a part of, but you know, when you're hustling and all that stuff, you feel a sense of want, like people want to be around you.
Right.
But it's not, it's all fair weather friends.
Yes.
The relationships ain't real. You know what I'm saying? You know, I think it was like somebody like I forget who said it. Probably I think it was Kevin Gates. He said something like, "You could pull out my, you know, past from my street life, and I probably got one pair of jeans, and they don't even fit me." You know what I'm saying? Like, like everything attached to that lifestyle is not a part of me anymore.
I respect that,
but it gets me. It's kind of like it gets me through a lot of situations still, and not that I handle things the right way today.
Right. Absolutely.
This is my like survival skills.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
like
hard to change out of that stuff, man, where you want to go from like, you try to keep it professional and then real quick you can get me from 0 to 100, right?
Yeah, bro.
So I got to like be on guard with that stuff, man, because I don't, you know what I mean? I try not to be like that today.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. And I think we have very similar stories, and we'll get back to you. And I say that to say, I love connecting with people that always see life from two different sides of the coin, right? That know the life that they want to create for maybe their family, for their kids and stuff like that, but then know the harsh reality of the life outside of that, right? And I think understanding both of those sides and then incorporating it in your music, which I feel like you do very well, I think that's the part where it makes an impact on people, right? It makes the impact on people that come from where you're from, right? And I really want to kind of unpack that, but I want to take a quick break and then let's get back to you.
All right.
You just sit and watch and subscribe cause you only fans. Getting money be the only plans. Now the seats is peanut butter. I done made it out them jams, blue bands. I double that. Pop you like you bubble wrap. For the loot that's strapped to your roof like a luggage rack.
Yeah, when I first met these guys, and that was my man KO. You know KO, shout to him. Um, I met Pay and Andy through him. He reached out to me and was like, "Yo, I want you on this track called Troublesome."
Right. Right.
He sent me the beat.
Track is fire, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes,
and
sir.
the rest was history, bro. We did the video for it and all that. And you know, when I first came to the studio, I'm like, you know what? This is like feeling like home. Like,
Feel
you
that.
know what I mean? It was like I finally met some people on the same path, like
Right.
same goals type shit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But yeah, so the project, like I had it in my mind for a while for to call it Nothing Was Overnight.
Okay.
The title was basically like not even necessarily on a musically, you know, basis. It was like,
Yeah, and I'm curious because I heard the title track, Nothing Was Overnight, but it didn't feel like that completely encompassed the whole project. And if you can, where did you pull a lot of the inspiration from, I guess?
it was really like from real life scenarios. I look
Okay.
at that like how I look at everything, bro. Like nothing comes overnight. Nothing's easy. Like you can't cheat the grind. Like, you know, I would suffer from this like instant gratification where I want everything today.
Right.
I want it yesterday. You know what I'm saying? And anytime I like forced that, it always got taken away from me. You know what I mean? Where anytime I was doing the wrong things, you know what I mean? There was always a consequence in some way.
Yeah, I know that.
So like I realized like it's like anybody, you know, there is artists out there that might have that one hit wonder, right? But then you
Sure.
don't ever see them again. Or there's times where we may see an artist and we think they're a one hit wonder
Right.
until you start digging into it. And it's like, damn, this
Right.
dude's been on his grind since he was like a teenager or,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
I was into music since probably like 11 years old.
Dope.
And, you know, like my man Chuck I spoke about.
Right.
When I met him, like this was like we had like a karaoke machine, a microphone, bro.
Okay. So very humble beginnings.
Yeah, and it was
I
just
get
like
that.
we were playing around, and like I'm really like I'm gonna age myself when I say this, but
Nah.
like they used to sell single CDs, bro, and they'd have the track on there, but then it would have the instrumental on it.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah,
I
I'm from
mean?
that era, man.
Yeah,
I'm from that.
and-
I'm from
yeah.
that same cloth. I get it.
Yeah,
Like,
or you'd be able to like download, you know, off LimeWire or some shit.
right. The instrumental.
Yeah.
Oh, nah. Let's even take it back to before SoundCloud. There was a website called SoundClick where people were
Yeah,
getting a lot of
SoundClick. I think I still got a SoundClick
Bro,
page out there somewhere.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't
bro.
be surprised.
Yeah, shout out to my boy Matic. We would record off the computer and like literally
Right.
hold the microphone, or we would hang it from the fan.
Yeah.
And just, you know, just like kill other people's beats. And you know, it was all fun and all. Like I never took it serious because like at that time, bro, it was like I was more into the partying and like
Right.
the smoking weed and drinking and selling drugs and shit. And you know,
You never did.
yeah, nah. Allegedly. So like basically where it took a turn though was I chose, you know, to live that lifestyle. I didn't care about no music, bro. I didn't care about like going to an official studio,
Right.
working with producers,
Mhm.
doing official videos. I didn't care about none of that. Man.
Right.
Like it was like music was just a hobby.
feel
And
that.
it was kind of like, all right, I got a passion for it. I love this, but you know, I ain't no rapper. You know what I mean? And it was like I would get drunk or high, and then I would, you know, write, or then I would, you know, record stuff.
Right.
So like it's funny you said the SoundClick thing because a lot of that stuff on there was like other industry beats that we would just
go
rap
off.
on. Yeah.
Right.
And you know, but back to like the Nothing Was Overnight project. So like I'll just cut right to the chase. Like I'm an addict, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say that like with conviction today. You know what I'm saying? I'm an addict and an alcoholic. And I can say that because for a while I didn't believe that, right? For a while I thought I can manage. I thought I could just casually drink. I thought I could just smoke weed.
Right.
I've tried all these different things and I was so like addicted to that lifestyle. And I just, you know what I mean? I couldn't get out of it. And it stole a lot of years from me, bro, of me like trying to basically just run my own show. You know what I mean?
Right. Man.
Like
I can only imagine the struggles you probably had to go through.
Oh man.
And I first and foremost, I want to commend you on even just sharing that, right? Because I feel like a lot of people that have probably went through your path, they're almost afraid to acknowledge it or to share that story with others in fear of being judged, right?
Right.
So for you to have the courage, especially in your artistry, from what I hear as well, to share that part of you and share that part of your story, yeah, man, that's something to highlight for sure because I feel like we're seeing a lot of these artists, right, that are struggling, whether it would be with alcohol, pills, like depression,
Mhm.
and we're watching these artists, man, that are talented, their life get cut short because
Right.
they're not addressing those things. And
Right.
it sounds like you were at a place where you addressed all those things and now you're creating this music that is changing people's lives that probably walk the same path.
Right. Yeah. And there's definitely like a stereotype attached to it. I feel like nowadays it's a little bit more not as judgmental. I feel like a lot of people either know somebody or a family member went through it or something.
Right.
So they're not really looking at you like, oh, really? You?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
it's all walks of life, bro. Like addiction doesn't really like discriminate. And at the end of the day, like somebody's always addicted to something, right? And so I looked at it in a different perspective. Like I'm always going to have that addictive personality. I just got to put it into the right things, right?
Mhm.
And you know, the real issue with me is like I always wanted to, like, obviously I like getting high, I like drinking, like I like the way it makes me feel, right?
Right.
But if it's to a point where it's killing me, or if it's to the point where like I don't want to ever be sober and I want to feel like that every day, then what's the real issue here, right?
Right.
So I really just like wanted to escape from myself, escape from my reality. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like since a young kid, bro, I was always on some type of substance. You know what I
I
mean?
get
I
that.
was always doing something, and I never
Mhm.
really knew what being sober was like. And I just knew that I never wanted to like feel it. So like there was so many like treatment centers and you know detoxes and therapists sitting me down like,
Right.
listen, you're not ever going to be able to successfully drink and get high. And I'd be like, whoa, I never had a problem
Problem
with
with it before.
alcohol.
Right,
I could
right.
just smoke weed.
Right.
And a lot of these people would tell me like, listen, like go and try it then. You know what I mean? If you think you
Yeah.
could just smoke weed, go and try it.
Yeah.
And I had to realize I can't compare myself to my boy who I grew up with here or my boy who I grew up with here, right?
Exactly.
Because you know, this dude don't drink or get high like I do.
Right.
And then, you know, rest in peace to everybody I lost. These dudes' lives got cut short.
Right.
There's many people I know that passed, bro, that I was really close to that helped me out of some messed up situations, right?
Mhm. Feel
And I
that.
used to think that they weren't as bad as me. But then, you know, that one time, bro, like I'm from the pill era. So like
Yeah, man.
nowadays it ain't the same pills, bro. It's fentanyl now. So
No.
it's like I used to look at somebody like, oh yeah, they're doing pills, right? You know, they're not that bad. He could just do them once in a while,
Right.
but that one time, you know what I mean. That one time will take you out. So it's scary, bro. Especially nowadays, it's scary. And I had to just like own my own truth, right? I had to get
Right.
honest with it. Like
Right.
I had to buy in. Like, all right, I really got a problem.
For sure.
You
And
know?
then and I coming up in South Jersey, coming from where you come from, man, I saw that. And
Mhm.
it was crazy. And I really, like I said, I commend you. I respect you for being a creative that's able to share that story with people and hopefully that it will change someone's life. It will change another creative's life that it might be in the same path or it might prevent them from going down that path, right?
Mhm.
Just by the things you just shared, man. I feel like your project, Nothing Was Overnight, it is the saving grace for an artist that might not have fully figured it out, right?
Mhm.
That are dealing with their own struggles and dealing with their own depressions. I think if they take the time to really listen to that project and know that they're not alone when they listen
Right.
to that project, I think you as an artist, I think that's probably one of your purposes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like keeping it real, being honest with the
Right.
shit, man. Like as an artist, entertainer, whatever you want to call it, like, you know, we can glorify certain shit. And I
Right.
feel like in hip hop, it like, you know, you look at like Future and all these other artists that came up during that time, they'll glorify the pills, they'll glorify doing drugs, right? And that's been in music for years, right? Um, but it's like I want to show, all right, we can still glorify, we can still talk that same kind of shit, right? but then I'm going to show you the other side of it, right?
Okay.
Where it's like, all right, it's cool if you're doing all that shit. Partying is part of hip hop. Popping bottles in the club, all that shit, strip club, that whole lifestyle is part of it, right?
Right.
That ain't my truth today now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't do that because there will be no Strada. There will be no other music. You feel me? My passions go out the door, and all I care about is like, you know, where's the next party at?
Absolutely.
Where's the next one? I want my next fix. You know what I'm saying? That's where my mind state goes, bro. So like there's like a whole mental illness attached to it. I noticed. You know, like whatever you suffer from, anxiety, depression, like some of the things you were saying, like that's why a lot of us, I feel like, self-medicate.
Exactly. Exactly.
And at the end of the day, everybody's different. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everybody's different. So you can't compare yourself to the next person. And I try to say that in my music, but I also like for the first year and a half or so of my sobriety, like I was never able to put together 60 or 90 days sober. And this last time around, I was so like broken, and I was so like I finally asked for help, and like in a genuine way. You know what I mean? I didn't just say, all right, I'm done. I'm not doing this no more.
Right.
I've said that so many times, and then 3 days later, I'm right back in the streets. But I really like asked for help. Like, all right, how did you do it? I stayed around other people that walked the same path as me, right? And like they were getting like years sober. And I'm like, how did you do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I basically like rode the coattails of them. And they're like, listen, this is what you got to do, bro. You got to get around the right people, positive people, do this, do that. And, you know, I just did it, and it started working. At first, I'm like, this is corny, bro.
And you bring up a great...
how am I going to stay sober for the rest of my life? I think this is corny.
You bring up such a great point, Strada. And I feel like, especially in our industry, having the OGs, right? Having the OGs kind of guide us, or even be examples of where not to go in this, man. Like, that is something that is almost like a blessing in disguise. And once again, man, it was a pleasure really just sitting down, talking with you, hearing your story, because I truly feel like this is what this platform is, right? To help other people, give spotlight on stories that are going to open the minds of other creatives. And I think that's what you're doing in your music. And I appreciate you sitting down with us. Let the folks know who you are, where they can find your music. Give them all that.
Oh,
got you. Yeah, you can follow me on all platforms at Strada215. Nothing Was Overnight is out now on all platforms. And if you don't know who this guy is, he's a fucking genius.
No, I'm not.